Hi everyone, this is an assembly video for block of the month number 2, February. Keep watching. So we're all ready to make block number 2, February. This is called a basket block, and it's for our block of the month challenge in Stitch It with Cricut Facebook group. So you saw in the first image that came up in this video that I had cut out all my blocks on, all my squares on my Cricut Maker, and I'm using this Cricut Riley Blake fabric. For the first block, I used these two fabrics, and this time I'm using these two. I wanted to make it a little different. I'm actually going to add in a small square of this fabric just to tie it into the first block that I did. So we have all our pieces cut out, and I've made my half square triangles. In the design space pattern, I've added the draw line with your Cricut washable fabric pen. If you want to add those in by hand, that's up to you. Just leave your pen adapter empty on your maker and everything will be fine. You can draw them in by hand. And to make our half square triangles, we sewed 1/4 inch on each side of that draw line, and we're just going to split it in half by cutting right along the draw line. There we go. Cut it in half. And now we're going to press these open as I did with all of these. So you had 5 blue and 5 yellow, or 5 light and 5 dark. And when you make them into half square triangles, you'll have 10, which is exactly what you need for this block. And I've just pressed these two very quickly to get ready to lay out our block. I'll show you what this is for as we go. So let's put this aside. You're going to find in the PDF a link for Nancy's Notions for a PDF how to assemble this block, but I thought I would show you also in a video for those who prefer to watch how it's done. So we're going to lay out our block. We take 3 and put them with the dark point facing down towards the right. And we take one of our rectangles and place it here. Then we take another 3. There we go. Let's move this up a bit so you can see it. I want you to be able to see the whole thing. Okay, so then we continue. Our third row is also pointing towards, 2 pointing towards the bottom right. You can start to see how the block is going to use. And for this next block, you'll see in the file, I've added with a note. You have a choice of using your light fabric or a completely different fabric. I'm going to use this polka dot one just to tie it into the 2 previous blocks that I made. We're going to point this one up. We're going to take our second long rectangle and place it here. Don't worry about them not fitting exactly, because once you sew these together, they'll be the same size. And we trim at the end to make sure everything lines up properly. There we go. And our last 3.5 yellow only, or light solid color only. So there we go. That's exactly how we lay it out. The first thing I'm going to do is sew these 3 squares together and these 3 squares together. I'll leave them like that, and I'll be back to show you how it looks. And here we go. We've got our first 2 rows assembled. So as you can see, as I emphasized in block number 1, you want to be sure that you've pressed your seams in opposite directions, to the right, to the left, so that you are able to nest your seams and get your points to line up perfectly. So the next thing we're going to do, I'll put a pin in here just to make sure it doesn't move as I'm sewing. So the next thing we're going to do is assemble these 2 pieces together, sewing straight along right down the center, and then we're going to attach our longer rectangle to the side. So now I have my 2 rows sewn together. I've pressed my seams towards the top. Oops, I need to repress that. And the next thing we're going to do is take our long rectangle and attach it to the side, to the right side. If you're off, if you see that you have some extra fabric, no worries, we're just going to trim that off after. So I'm going to sew that on, repress it and correct this, and I'll be back and we'll continue on creating our 3rd row and our 4th row and attaching them together also. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is attach these 2 rows together. And once again, I was careful to press my seams in opposite directions so that I can nest my seams and get nice points. Put a pin in here while I sew. And just line those up. There we go. We'll sew straight along and we're almost finished our block. And here we are. So all we have left to do is to sew these 2 top to these 2 bottom. We're going to stitch right along the middle. You want to be very careful to line up your seams and nest all your seams so it's super pretty when it's done. Put a pin in it to make sure nothing moves. Make sure all your seams feel nice and flat. No lumps. Lumps, bumps, or others. You don't want those. Okay, so I'm going to sew right along and our block will be done, except for just making sure to square it up when you're done. So I'll be right back. And here we are. Our block is done. I think it's really, really cute. And I like that I chose to add in this 3rd fabric. You don't have to. You can just use the lighter color to fill that space. Both cuts are in the design space file. So all I'm going to do now is square it up. You don't want to be trimming too much off of it. You want to make sure that all your blocks are the same size. So you don't want to trim off too much. But this is block number 2, February. It's called a basket block. And once again, you can find it in the group files in Stitch It with Cricut Facebook group. I hope you enjoyed this block and thank you for watching.